Good evening, everybody. It's David Schlotthauer here in the home weather office with another detailed tropical weather outlook and discussion for your Wednesday evening on the 17th day of September 2025. And in this live stream, we are going to be we have a lot to talk about. We have a lot to cover. So this is probably going to be a very lengthy live stream because we're not only going to be talking about Tropical Storm Gabrielle, which arguably enough does not look very much like a tropical storm. Even so, for you all that are watching this, looks very much like a tropical storm, but I'll talk more about that here in this live stream. And then, of course, more additional development behind that as we end out September into early October. And then, of course, we'll have to watch what goes on down here in the Caribbean and the Southern Gulf. But I'm not too concerned about anything, at least over the next 5 to 10 days in that general area. And then rarely do I cover the Western Pacific because we are concerned about Invest 90W, not 90L, but 90W. Become a very formidable typhoon as that approaches potentially across southern Taiwan as well as the northern Philippines in about 5 to 7 days. So yeah, going a little international in this live stream tonight. So let's first talk about Gabrielle because yeah, I've been seeing a lot of tweets on X about that this should not be named. The NHC is going a little too aggressive. And without a surprise, I'm agreeing with you very much on that. And the reason why is, one could really argue has a bit better defined circulation, but my goodness, this morning and early afternoon, this thing was so lopsided that one could even argue it's even a tropical storm at all. There is clearly the low-level swirl, and there is only a little bit of a burst of deep convection on the northeastern quadrant that is not over the center. So we are seeing vertical wind shear coming in out of the southwesterly direction. There is also a lot of dry air on this system as well. So nothing really screams that this thing is going to get organized in a hurry anytime soon at all. In fact, it might take 4 to 5 days before it really tries to consolidate itself because of all of this drier air that Gabrielle is dealing with. And that's been the case for a while over the last 3 weeks, even 4 weeks, where we have had a lot of this dry air, a lot of vertical wind shear, just really not a ideal setup. The background state just not cooperating at all for this hurricane season. And I've got to say, there is a lot of data that I'll show you to back that up. And I'll tell you, we're very, very blessed and glad about that because wait until you see the upper ocean heat content. Wait until we look at some of our tweet people from Michael Flamingo, Michael, something like that. Andrew as well. He was actually on Fox Weather tonight, which is great to hear. So Andrew is great at what he does. So right now, we don't have a whole lot with this system. It is very innocuous, not organized at all. One that really argues if it's even a tropical storm. And that's because, again, what we just talked about, there's a lot of moisture on this side of the system. I get that, but there's also a lot of this dark gray and black color, especially right here in the last few frames. Man, this is extremely, extremely dry and stable right here. As dry as a bone, you could even think about. And then all of this up here is also really dry air. And the problem is the dry air is one byproduct to prevent tropical development, but it's the vertical wind shear. And you can see when we play this through, see these feathery white cirrus clouds? They are not fanning out. They're not going out like this in all quadrants. So we're not seeing a very well established outflow pattern over tropical storm Gabrielle, and instead we have mainly outflow in one quadrant associated with a little bit of a tut cell that is right here. You got that southwesterly vertical wind shear that is scraping in from the southwest at about 30 knots. So that is not ideal for this system at all. And with as much dry air as there has been some interesting weakening trends on our global computer models. And I'm in another server that talks a lot about this, and boy, they are not agreeing. They're still saying that this is going to become a Cat 1 or a Cat 2 hurricane. That's very aggressive. That is very, very extremely high in my case, or in their case, and in my own opinion. I would not be surprised if this does not get much stronger than what it is right now, and I'll explain that in our global computer models here in a second. So that is what Gabrielle looks like on the water vapor imagery. This is what it actually looks like when we look at our 850 millibar vorticity. This is a little bit offset though with the actual system. The vorticity is right here, but remember, most of our deep convection is offset to the northeast thanks to that vertical wind shear. There's definitely a footprint of vorticity, but it is elongated, it is stretched, it is not going to be very organized. More than anything, this area of disturbed weather that made its way onshore this morning over the Carolina coast, as well as Virginia, that looked more like a tropical system. And I'll show that to you all in just a second. But here's a look at Tropical Storm Gabrielle. You can see the area of deep convection, and look at this. This is moderate to strong, unfavorable vertical wind shear that is impacting the system, okay? This is not ideal. There's not much green out here. The only favorable area is well to the southeast of Gabrielle right now, where we have vertical wind shear generally around 10 to 15 miles or 10 to 15 knots. Even vertical wind shear here over parts of the Caribbean, just not what you want to see at all out there for this time of the year. We're just past the peak of hurricane season, and one would expect that things are going to get favorable, and it doesn't look like that's going to happen. Well, other than Gabrielle, things should change once we go into early October. So here's a system that should have been designated by the National Hurricane Center, yet they're going to designate something out there in the middle of the Atlantic. More on that here. And you can see which one looks a little bit more organized. This is from yesterday morning, not this morning. I mean, you could really tell that, wow, explosive convection right where the center of circulation is. It's a little offset due to some vertical wind shear. But I'll tell you, this looks a little bit more like a tropical storm, more subtropical in nature, but there would, if I could find the tweet on this system, it did briefly develop a warm core in the low and mid levels of the atmosphere. So this could have been designated as a brief tropical storm as it made its way onshore yesterday evening. And you can see that circulation there. I mean, this looked really, really organized, and yet the National Hurricane Center says, nope, it is not a tropical storm or even a subtropical storm or even an extratropical storm whatsoever. So interesting that they missed this system while it was even way more organized than the whole whatever system we're seeing right here. Like Gabrielle, come on. In my opinion, it does definitely a tropical depression, at least with 30 to 35 mile an hour winds, but I'm not sure about it being a tropical storm right now. All right, so, and actually, let's go to the National Hurricane Center to show you that really quickly. Then we'll dive into our models. There it is. There she is. Oops. Let's go to that. Let's zoom out. There we go. There we go. I had to fix that. So, yeah, 50 mile an hour tropical storm. Let's. Okay, why is the National Hurricane Center? Okay, this is what we need to do. There we go. Let's make this bigger. So, this is Tropical Storm Gabrielle's track forecast. For you all that are wondering, yep, there it is, 50 mile an hour winds. I disagree with that. I think it has winds of about 30 to 35. In my own opinion, because of how large the system is, the circulation is a little bit better defined, but it still lacks definition a little bit. Some swirly, some vorticity maximum, vortmax is circulating around the parent center. But nonetheless, the NHC, they're the experts. We'll say it's a tropical storm, but in my own opinion, it's not just yet. This is going to remain a tropical storm over the next 3 to 4 days with winds of about 50 to 60 miles an hour, but then becomes a hurricane as it moves just to the east of Bermuda. Is it a hurricane up here? There is some downward trends in the modeling on that, but definitely a tropical storm at the very most here with winds of at least 50 to 55, maybe up to 60 miles an hour. But that's pretty much the ceiling on this because of the dry air that we are dealing with. So really not a big impactful system for the time being right now over the next 5 days, which is great news. But yes, if you're in Bermuda, still watch the system very closely because it could pull a couple of surprises, but confidence on that is relatively low. So looking at the models on this now, okay, and this is why I am in agreement with the models more than the NHC right now, is because of what the Euro is showing here. And as we play this through, I mean, this really loses definition. In 66 hours, that is not a tropical storm at all. Not a tropical storm whatsoever, with winds maybe up to about 20 to 25 knots. That is a tropical depression at the very most, and central pressures here at 1,012 millibars. I mean, come on. Come on. And they're forecasting this to become a 50 to 60 mile an hour tropical storm. We'll see. Is the NHC onto something, or are the models onto something? But wow, what a poor definition-like system on the 18Z Euro. And even on the 12Z, it was a little bit more better defined. 06Z run, even a little bit better defined. 0Z from last night, even a little bit more. So there has been a slight weakening trend over the last 4 model runs on the Euro, showing a less defined system in 66 hours. Now, putting this into motion here, this does get close, okay, and I understand this. This does get close to Bermuda with a pressure of 1,000 millibars and winds that are at least tropical storm intensity of at least 40 to 50 miles an hour. But we are not seeing a hurricane with what other models are picking up on, and I'll show you that here in a second. Even our HABs A and B models are disagreeing with the NHC right now, so I wouldn't be surprised if the NHC drops down their intensity here in future updates. But really, this is, and I don't like to underhype things. I know what I'm looking for, and that's where the disagreement amongst the weather community is coming from. Like, say that there, even a couple of people were saying I'm a liar, I don't know what I'm talking about. Clearly I know, because so far this is our 7th named storm, and my prediction was for 10 to 14 named storms. So still in the ballpark of my prediction here of our number of named storms for the hurricane season. So I know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm looking for here. It's all about pattern recognition. The background state just not ideal here. Even so, we're seeing convection. Okay. So let's take a look now at the moisture on this. So this is pretty much where we are right now. Look at all that dry air. Just like, dang, that's a lot of brown there. That's poison to our tropical system. Here's more drier air to the north. One could look at this and argue like, this does not look poised to bonify and rapidly intensify into anything major like we saw with Aaron, because we're not seeing that pocket of moisture. We need to see a lot of green and teal colors. So we want to see a lot of, well, let me draw this a little bit better and a little thicker. We want to see a lot of green over our system, right? We want to see a good symmetrical pocket where there's not much dry air surrounding the system, and instead we have the opposite. We have some green and teal colors. That's a lot of moisture in the deep layers and down here. But what we do have is a lot of moisture, or a lot of dry air that is encroaching onto the system. And it becomes so much so that look what happens to the system. It literally surrounds the system completely. And it really looks very innocuous here over the next couple of days. I mean, one could really argue, is this even a tropical depression or a tropical storm at all? And in my own opinion, this would be a very weak tropical depression with winds of at least 30 to 35 miles an hour at the very most. Because again, really lacking a lot of that convection. And then it does try to develop a little bit more better of a asymmetrical pocket. But before wind shear really picks up from the west again, going to shove all that drier air in yet again into Gabrielle. And so overall, I do see Gabrielle struggling for the foreseeable future. It's going to be one of those systems that looks like, oh, we thought it was going to do something really big. Well, the pattern's always changing, folks. It doesn't stay the same from day to day to day to day. Things change out there, and it's for the better in this case. I mean, we do not want Bermuda getting smacked with a Category 3 or 4 hurricane. Instead, we don't want Bermuda getting impacted at all with a tropical storm or a hurricane in itself. All right, so good news that this season is failing to some degree. All right, other than Fernand, we saw that. We saw Aaron. I get it, okay? But now we're past those two storms, and now we are on the 17th and the 18th of September. So looking at the European 200 millibar upper level wind chart here, you can see a little bit of a tut future here. That has been the big problem as of late over the last 3 weeks, where we have these tut futures that are really encroaching shear. Here's another tut future here helping encroach the shear onto Gabrielle. Here's another tut. So we have three systems all out here in the upper levels that are keeping southwesterly flow over Gabrielle right now. Not an ideal situation. Now, if Gabrielle, which is here, was down here underneath this anticyclone, see how these vectors are going this direction, right? How they're spreading out in all directions. Then I would say that, wow, we really need to watch Gabrielle very carefully, because this could really explode in size. But where it's at, I'm telling you, there's vertical wind shear, strong southwesterly flow of 20 to 30 knots over the system. You can tell that's not going to go very well for the system. Now, what goes on next? Well, it looks like vertical wind shear is going to stay over the system. As you can see here, again, no anticyclonic flow in the upper levels. You still got the southerly flow encroaching on the system. The vertical wind shear would decrease just a little bit from the 30 knots, maybe down to about 20 knots. But, I mean, that's not much lower. And so going forward here, look at, we got vertical wind shear. And I just realized my camera is blurry yet again. So let me fix that really quickly. There we go. So you guys can see me a little bit better. Okay, because I want to talk at you. I don't want to talk to you, right? So I want you all to understand that this is not a very favorable background. It really isn't. I mean, I know a lot of you are probably disappointed that, man, this hurricane season was supposed to be active, David. It really was. Well, it's a forecast. It's not actually what's going to happen. This is good, and I've got to say, it's a great thing that this season could end up underperforming, and there's evidence to back that up, all right? Because I'll tell you, what if it was overperforming by a big margin like 2020, right? There's the extremes. 2020 overperformed by a big margin. 2025 could underperform by a big margin. So things happen, and we don't quite understand. Even me being a very advanced level 5 out of 5 weather enthusiast here, I don't even know what caused this season to bust. But I will tell you that I think the connection to the North Pacific, a negative IOD, what is known as the Indian Oscillation Dipole being negative, on top of a very warm troposphere, has a lot to do with why this season did not pan out like what everyone was predicting. And honestly, I'm fine with that. I am fine with that, with the season not performing as what we were hoping for. Well, in this case, we shouldn't hope for that, because, yeah, many lives could have been at stake. So looking at, again, this is okay, so that was a Euro. Now this is the artificial intelligence model showing you this. And this is important because look at what the AI shows. Same thing, but not very strong by any means. But look what the AI model shows. Really has a less of a footprint here. And if we look at prior model runs, it has been definitely consistent with its weakening trend here. So the AI model, yet again, seeing it before our deterministic models see it. Just like with what the AI model did with 91L, all the AI models downtrended before our deterministic operational models did. That's why I am really loving that the AI model is doing very well this hurricane season by all means versus our deterministic models in a comparison. So there is Gabrielle, and again, one could even argue it's even a named storm at this point. And then it does try to consolidate a little bit, but even so, look at the AI model here. A 1007 millibar versus we're supposed to be down to 940, 950 millibars, like what the previous GFS model runs showed yesterday. Goes to show you that it's when things are too far out, things are too far out, okay? So that is what the AI model is showing. And then, of course, beyond that, it is showing another tropical wave that's really weak and something else over here. And then just a little bit of shenanigans coming off of Africa, but nothing that really eye pops out to me over the next 10 days. And this would take us through the end of September and even into early October. Man, we do have a nice, good tropical wave here, over here, and even a very weak signature here, but really nothing that rings a bell that really pops out that asks, wow, we're going to see major hurricanes into early October. That could theoretically happen, but really much of the guidance right now really not suggesting that for the time being. And if we actually look at the European model here, let's look at this model forecast. For the 12Z output, you can even see here over the next 10 days, same thing, really innocuous like pattern. And then down the road, fantasy land, we want to be careful about that. The Euro sniffing out a tropical system while the GFS and the AI model isn't. So please take this with a grain of salt that right now I guarantee in its 0Z European model run, we're not going to have that there anymore. We do have a couple of tropical waves that we will need to watch. But of course, until something actually develops, really I'm not too concerned about anything. Now, the GFS model here, look at even the GFS model barely. I mean, where's Gabrielle? Where is Gabrielle on the map, right? Like, this is 3 days out on the GFS, and where is it? Where is it? You know? So there it is. I'll give you the answer. That is very, very poorly defined on the vorticity plot. That's why you like using this product. A little bit of a tropical wave here. I mean, one could even argue this looks a little bit more impressive as a broad future than what Gabrielle actually looks. And then here's another little wave here. So definitely some tropical waves out there. But of course, stability always wins the battle with anything. And that is why we're not talking about 3 or 4 major hurricanes that are expected to develop out there, right? That would be something else. So now looking at the Canadian model, the Canadian is very aggressive and quite bullish in its 12Z output here, showing a 985 millibar system. Even so, though, that is a low-grade hurricane that could be a little too aggressive in my own opinion because, again, of the drier air that the system is going to be facing at least over the next 3 to 4 days. And then after that, though, it will likely get wrapped up into the westerlies up here and not bother anyone. So another out-to-sea storm, very likely at this point. No threats to any land areas for the time being. So with that being said, let's talk about the ensembles here, all right? And as you all know, you know me all too well, I don't go beyond 10 days for many reasons. Everyone out there goes beyond 10 days, and that's where problems occur because beyond 10 days, there's a lot of ensemble model disagreement, but there's a lot of tracks that show significant development out here in the Northwestern Caribbean and in the Gulf. And I know a lot of you are going to say, but yeah, David, it is Central American gyre season. We got to pay attention. There's a reason why I don't go beyond 10 days because there's a lot of uncertainty. Things could change very quickly. You saw with what happened with 91L. All of the ensembles thought that 91L was going to become a big monster out there, and poof, it never did it. It never got too far. That's why we got to be careful with what we look at beyond 10 days out. And we cannot jump to speculation that, oh, just because all these have red and orange colors, meaning we're going to have a hurricane. No, it doesn't mean that. Because as you know, we just look at the deterministic models. There's a lot there's a lot of hostile conditions that are preventing Gabrielle from becoming any stronger. So therefore, looking at the 10-day forecast on the European Ensemble forecast, all 51 members here, you can see most of the members here do indicate a low to medium grade tropical storm with winds between about 40 to 50 miles an hour, maybe even up to 60 miles an hour, but that's a bit on the high side. And there is still a very, very low incoherent signal here in the Caribbean, as well as the Southwestern Atlantic and the Gulf for the time being. So anybody that follows anyone out there that says, oh, there's going to be a big tropical storm or hurricane developing in the Gulf or the Northwestern Caribbean, please be careful with who you look at and who you follow out there because, of course, we know it's been so dead and people are getting bored and sick and tired of how dead it actually is. So they're going to start looking very far out, 384 hours out for some crazy signals out here in the Caribbean and the Gulf, okay? I don't want to get my ego in the way of myself here. I'm not trying to be the best out there, but I know what I'm looking for. It's all based on weather pattern recognition. So the state of the pattern that we're in, dry air, vertical wind shear, the background state just not coherent, lots of sinking subsidence, really, like, got to ask yourself, wait until the pattern actually changes, and then we'll look at, okay, we got to be a little more concerned about the Caribbean and the Gulf, but we're not there yet. Okay, so until then, it's all fantasy land. There's no coherent signal for right now. The GEFS ensemble really not showing much out here in the Caribbean over the next 10 days. Only a small signal of model members showing some slim development out there in the Gulf in the next 10 days. But even so, you know how the GFS has been so far, has been all over the place. So this is probably a little bit of funk and fuzz right now in the modeling in the ensemble forecasting for the Gulf. Now, looking at the AI models, this is the one that's a little bit more valuable, more important, because it's done quite a good job this hurricane season. Yes, there is a little bit of a signal here, but I'm going to wait for additional model runs to come in before I sound the alarm saying, oh, you all got to get prepared for this disturbance. It's going to be a while before we get coherency in our ensemble modeling from the Google DeepMind AI models, okay? This is the FNV3, which is one of the Google DeepMind AI models. And you can see a low signal there for tropical development. And one could even argue that maybe a low-end tropical depression with winds of about 25 to 30 at the most right now would be the best case scenario or the worst case scenario at this time. But even so, that may be a bit on the high side. Because look at this. The Google DeepMind generation model. Look at, what do you see? What do you see in the Caribbean and the Gulf and the Southwestern Atlantic? You see nothing in the next 10 days. So I'm going to look at all 4 of the ensemble model members here, and I'm going to look at the average. And right now, most of them do not show development in the next 10 days over in this area of the Caribbean or the Gulf over the course of the next 7 to 10 days, which means you can go on a vacation to Jamaica, to the Cayman Islands without worrying about any tropical development for right now, all the way across the Puerto Rico region, the Dominican Republic. Venezuela looks good. Even the Yucatan Peninsula looks good, although some enhanced rain showers and thunderstorms would be the thing, but nothing that is organized by any part, okay? So good news, this is going out to sea. Most of the members here show a low to medium grade tropical storm, and hold me to it. Really, I'm experimenting with myself here. Hold me to it that are watching this live stream that David said, a maximum intensity of about 50 to 60 miles an hour, because initially, right now, the NHC has this at 50. So I would say 50 to 55 at the most. Hold me to it. All right. That I am not forecasting this to become a hurricane for right now. And remember my video a couple of days ago as well. So I did say that, oh, the maximum potential intensity here is this. Okay, so we did get a new update from the NHC right now. It's still at 50 miles an hour as of 11 o'clock tonight. And still, they are calling for this to become a hurricane. All right, NHC, we'll see. We'll see how that holds off. All right, so right now, the intensity forecast really quickly on Gabrielle, you can see the majority. You can see the majority of the models, tropical storm intensity. Okay, and the OFCI model, which is, I believe that's the NHC intensity forecast, they are above pretty much most of the guidance. Okay, so therefore, my intensity forecast called this to be to weaken just a little bit, and then some slight strengthening is expected, only a little bit, but literally like in around the tropical storm intensity at the given time. So I'm essentially not expecting this to get much stronger than what we have right now, unless something miraculously changes. Then okay, I can be taking the blame for that. Okay, so this is your problem. This is why the Atlantic has not been active at all over the last 3 weeks. The stability issues. We have not had a much or enough instability out there in the Atlantic. It's been below average for the entire season. Okay, pretty much only one time did this get to above average instability in the Atlantic, and then it just went right back down, and that's where we stayed pretty much for most of this period. Ever since pretty much early May, we've been looking at well below average instability numbers, meaning there's been more stability than usual. That means not as much cold air aloft. The surface still quite warm, but the lapse rates are not as steep. So we're not getting a whole lot of vertical instability out there. And that's what you need to kickstart the tropics. That's what you need to get a lot of convection, a lot of surface convergence or confluence to get things started. Also, the generalized deep layer vertical wind shear has been also quite strong, anywhere between 20 to 25 knots, stronger than the average for this time of the year. And that is also why we have not seen much in the way of development. But will that change? I mean, I'm tired of looking at MJO forecasts because they keep getting pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed back. All right. And so this is where we've been in the past. So this is basically our observed velocity potential. You can see a lot of brown has been persisting for a while, since literally mid-August. Literally since mid-August, we have had a lot of sinking subsidence, dry, stable air that has been in place since the 20th of August. Really not ideal for any development. All right, and you're probably thinking that, man, this is really rare to see, and it truly is. We have not had any MJO activity, and even if we did have a little bit of an MJO pulse, we were not able to get anything, or that's a convective coupled Kelvin wave, actually. That's not really lining up well with our velocity potential. So you can see now, what does the future hold ahead of us? So between the 17th of September and the 23rd, we do get a weak convective coupled Kelvin wave coinciding with a little bit of rising motion, not a whole lot, something that we should see more of in order to get more TCG activity. But we're not seeing that. And then a weak MJO signal really holding across much of the Atlantic through the end of September. And then maybe a better favorable period for early October, according to this. Now, of course, what I just said means a favorable period is possible, but not a guarantee. Based on what we've seen in the past right now, this is only a forecast and not what is actually going to happen. And then maybe a little bit still favorable through the middle of October. We will see how much the Atlantic takes full advantage of with any possible favorability that is coming around the corner for early and mid-October. So now, with that being said, let's take a look here at with what my good old friend, awesome Andrew Austin Adler has to say on X. Really good guy, folks. I mean, he's been featured in Fox weather interviews recently. In fact, he was at an interview tonight with Fox Weather. So this guy knows his business. This guy is absolutely awesome. We got to give him a huge round of applause, you guys, because he knows his crap. He really does when it comes to the tropics. So September 17th, and the Atlantic is behaving as if it's June 17th. That is what you do not want to hear from a meteorologist over here. I mean, the Atlantic is behaving as it's mid-June. Are we really in mid-June, or are we really in September 17th? I mean, you got to really ask yourself, like, seriously? What am I even looking at here? Like, wow. Like, even with favorable sea surface temperature configurations, even with a La Nina, this is what we get, which goes to show you just because we have favorable sea surface temperatures doesn't equate necessarily to a favorable atmospheric state. And that's what we've been seeing this whole season, really just kind of a wonk and a funk out there in the tropics with anything right now. Okay, another person, Michael over here on X as well. Love to follow him. As of September 16th, total ACE in the Atlantic this season remains at 38.98 units. All of the Atlantic hurricane seasons since 1950 to feature below 40 ACE units of ACE to date, only one single season has ever made a comeback to produce a seasonal total of more than 100. Historically, it is very difficult for late season to make up for such prolonged inactivity during what is typically the peak of hurricane season in the Atlantic. So in other words, we're honestly, I'm not taking his words very seriously here, but when I look at this data, we have to start really wondering, will the season actually wake up into October? Because if it doesn't, I will tell you right now, if we don't get any more activity through the middle of October, then we can start saying that, okay, yeah, hurricane season's probably done for the season. Probably as in, like, it's not a guarantee. I want to be careful with my words here. But, I mean, look how dead it's been. Okay, other than Gabrielle, all right. That's going to produce a little bit of ACE units, but come on. That's even a little bit of a funk in the tropical weather world there with Gabrielle. So this is where we're at right now. And look at the past hurricane seasons. I mean, we are pretty dang down there versus where we should be, like 2014, we were at 66 ACE points by this time, I believe. Yeah. And then let's see, 2022. Does that ring a bell? 2022 on an ACE producing perspective, second highest on record behind 1963. So you have to really ask yourself that, man, we are below 2022. We are below 2002. We're even below 2015. We're only just slightly ahead of 2013 by a very smidge margin. What other seasons? Yeah, there's not much 2000s here. Yeah. So all I got to say is, yeah, we are really, really below average right now by a big margin, not just by a little bit right now. So that is something to take into consideration. So let's take a look now at Michael Lowry's X post here. Whatever dry air stability issues have been plaguing the deeper tropical Atlantic from a South Florida standpoint, I am just glad. Okay, so let's just say this. All right, very critical, important words that he says here. Okay. And I like to highlight things. Okay. I am just glad nothing has snuck into the southwestern Atlantic or northwestern Caribbean so far. Okay. Ever since Aaron, well, we knew Aaron was coming, right? But really, it's been really, really dead quiet out there in the Caribbean. In fact, we have not had one named storm in the Caribbean so far this hurricane season. How does that sound? Yeah, okay. Because look what I'm about to tell you here, okay? And that will lead us into upper ocean heat content here. Okay, waters are impressively warm in the lanes storms often taken into South Florida. All right. So you can see here when we click on this image, record warm water temperature anomalies. And you can see the red here, Southern Gulf into the Northwestern Caribbean, the Southwestern Atlantic, record warmest. The top 5 warmest here, and possibly the top 2 warmest ever recorded here in the Northwestern Caribbean, the Southwestern Atlantic, and the southern half of the Gulf. This is very, very concerning. And you really have to say, and I'm being straight up honest, you really have to be blessed and thankful that, man, it's good that this season is underperforming for right now, because if it didn't underperform, we would have had some of the biggest, most impactful landfalls ever to date because of how high this upper ocean heat content is. So one could really be thankful that, wow, it's a good thing that there's a lot of stability out there capping the atmosphere, because if it weren't for that, we would be in a whole different ball game and ballpark right now. We'd probably be live streaming on a major hurricane right now. Even so, I'm live streaming anyways tonight. So now back to Andrew Austin again. This is a remarkable seasonal summary. We'll see what the rest of the month of October has in store, but this season so far has greatly underperformed even the more bearish expectations. Okay, so the bearish as in my prediction. So even my numbers are not coming to fruition. But that being the closest, and I will show you my predictions here in a second on the, actually, let me bring that up really quickly while that's actually loading. Even my predictions are a little bit too high. That's just how inactive the season has been so far. And you can see there is Tropical Depression 7. Well, it's now Gabrielle, but only one hurricane out of the whole season. One hurricane. And I'm not trying to laugh at this, but like, it's kind of like, that's all you get, mister. That's all you're getting fed from me. You know, it's like feeding cat food or feeding the cats food, but instead of giving them way too much, you're giving them barely enough. So they end up not having enough for themselves, right? It's basically, well, this season, you know, you get what you get and you can't throw a fit. And honestly, we're not throwing a fit over how dead the season actually is. It's a learning curve for a lot of forecasters out there. And you can see here ranking 48 out of 75. So we're down there. We are definitely in the lower, we're below the half the standard deviation right now. And if we don't get much activity more, man, we could end up below the standard 1 deviation by probably even by early October. That would be very remarkable. Yeah, we're supposed to be, people were predicting a pretty busy hurricane season. We were supposed to be way up here. Well, nope, we're way down here instead. Yeah, that goes to show you just, wow. Yeah, this season really isn't performing in the number world as well as the ace producing world either. So now it is very important. I wanted to show you all this because, yes, I do make public hurricane predictions on a website, and you will like seeing this, all right? So let's explore more predictions here. And you can go check this out for yourself as well. So this is what the latest forecast agencies were forecasting. And keep in mind, there is no forecast that is lower than mine. Okay, so if this is mine right here, Schlotthauer. I don't know if you all can see that. Schlotthauer. That's my last name. Okay. And look at what I'm predicting. A below average to near average hurricane season. All right. Predicting, this said 10 to 16 right now. I don't know why. I think she meant to put 10 to 14 named storms. So actually, a below average to near average hurricane season is what my forecast is calling for. Below any other agency out there, even lower than the UK Met Office, as well as the European model, predicting a little higher in the way of the number of named storms. Okay. The number of hurricanes as well. Let's take a look at that. Yeah, look at mine. I predicted 4 hurricanes. We have only had 1 so far this season. But look at, again, all of the agencies higher than mine with the number of hurricanes. So you can kind of get an idea that who's going to be closest of being correct here. I am. Even so, I'm off by 1 or 2 named storms. I'm also closest when it comes to accuracy here versus other agencies like AccuWeather predicting up to 10 named storms. Don't get me started with them with the whole mischief with 91L predicting a hurricane with that. Yeah. AccuWeather predicting up to 18 named storms. Yeah, I don't think that's even happening either. So yeah, just goes to show you that. Yeah. And those have been my predictions, by the way. Since March, I predicted back in March 10 to 14 named storms. And I'm not lying when I say that. It's on my X post. It's pinned to my profile. You can go check that out and be like, wow, David really has been consistent with his predictions. And the fact is, it's actually so far panning out the way I predicted it to be. So honestly, I'm glad this hurricane season is busting in a way, right? I'm really blessed and glad that it's not panning out. And I'm not disappointed. I might sound a little disappointed, but honestly, I'm excited. I'm happy for that because it goes to show you that someone's got to be right at the end, right? So upper ocean heat content, yes, this is very, very, very serious. And I cannot say this enough. I cannot say this enough. All right. It's a good thing that we don't have a tropical system that's doing this and it kind of moves up like this and moves over Jamaica and then over the Cayman Islands, and it kind of does like an Ian-like track, right? It takes full advantage of this upper ocean heat content because I'm telling you right now, we could be in a much worse situation where this upper ocean heat content favors Cat 4 or Cat 5 hurricanes repeatedly, right? So it's a good thing in a way that the Caribbean has been pretty dead this season so far. Because if it weren't for the stable air, these tropical waves like 91L could have taken full advantage with this, and we could have had a big, big fat problem on our doorstep to worry about. But the good thing is things have been nice and quiet. Even in the Gulf, upper ocean heat content here is extremely high at all-time record highs, perhaps even over here and over here. Just sickening to see this. And of course, southeastern portion of the Gulf, record high upper ocean heat content, something that we have never seen before. And like I said, it's a good thing that we are not seeing any big tropical organized wave moving throughout the northwestern Caribbean, or otherwise we would have had a lot to deal with. And we don't want to have to deal with that, right? Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit because since we're not very concerned about the tropical Atlantic, yeah, I think it's important that we start discussing typhoons in the Western Pacific because, yes, invest 90W, that is, W means Western Pacific, E means Eastern Pacific, and L means Atlantic, all right? And C, I think C, that's how they do it, right? C for Central Pacific, something like that. And so this is 90W, and look at how strong on the Euro 90W actually gets. Looking at a major hurricane here, Potentially a super typhoon. Would not be surprising if this actually makes a run for a category 3, a category 4, or even a category 5. One of the first of the typhoon season, and this could make landfall potentially over the southern half of Taiwan or the northern portion here of the Philippines in about 5 days. When you look at the AI model, the FNV3 model, the DeepMind forecast, you can see a little bit of shenanigans here on that model. But this is 90W that we're concerned about. And look at all of the members that predict this thing to become a major hurricane. That is 100 knots or greater. That means 115 miles an hour or greater. That's a category 3 or greater that is anticipated. And in 5 days, this could move right over the northern tip of the Philippines or right off the coast there, impacting some of the islands here to the south of Taiwan as well in about, again, 5 days. And some of the pressures here are very low, down into even the sub 900s. And you can see a very solid track here of major typhoon intensity here over the course of the next 5 to say 7 days. All right, so that's what we're dealing with here in that time frame. And now looking at that forecast here on the Tropical Tidbits website on the typhoon really quickly, since again there's not much other systems to talk about. You can see there is a typhoon clipping there, the northern Philippines at a 912 millibar, a 150 knot system. That is a category 5 hurricane with winds of 170 to 180 miles an hour. That is very devastating to see that impact the northern tip there of the Philippines in about 4 to 5 days. And then it holds its strength once it gets into the China Sea down the road. All right, so that's what that shows. 06Z run had a sub 900, even down at 895 millibars, and winds that maxed out at around 150 knots, or about 170 to 180 miles an hour. So yeah, a very strong typhoon. We might go live and talk about this if necessary for early next week. Actually, this is Sunday, and I'm working on Sunday, so probably not going to be able to do one, unfortunately, for you all there living in the Philippines or in Taiwan. But yeah, big monster typhoon on the way there, potentially for southern Taiwan as well as the northern Philippines. All right, any questions? Any questions that you guys need to ask? Not many people here tonight, and I can see why. The tropics are just not very active at all, which is, again, great news. And that actually is going to, until we get more significant development, probably going to be my second or third to last tropical video of this hurricane season until something really develops. I'm really starting to turn my back on the hurricane season just based on what we're seeing. Oh, yeah, Michael, yes. Let's actually talk about thunderstorm potential for California. This is related to what is left with Mario. Let's actually go to here. Let's click this. So, yeah, so tropical moisture associated with what it was left with Mario here, moving up the coast into California, and you can really get an idea with what we're dealing with here. On satellite, you can see a lot of moisture streaming northward. There is going to be the risk for flash flooding, some mudslides, debris flows as well in Southern California due to some high-based thunderstorms. A lot of moisture associated with this system. And actually, if we look at this on Weather Bell, actually, you know what? We're going to actually look at this on the College Dew page because they have a better interface for that for California weather. So let's look at that. The HRRR on its 0Z model forecast, and you can see here, yeah, there's going to be a lot of tropical-like rain. This is not winter weather related, and that could be a huge problem. Even for Northern California, look at this, a little bit of a swirl, a mid-level circulation, what is left with Mario moving into the Sacramento Valley in about, say, a couple of days, and more showers and still leftover high-based thunderstorms in Southern California, part of this tropical moisture that is working its way up. Actually, let me zoom in so you all can see that a little bit better. Now, let's take a look here at the... Do they not have... Dang it, they do not have... And how do they not have... Okay, so my bad. I am going to have to use Weather Bell for this one, because they are not showing the plot that I really wanted. So let's look at this. And I'll tell you, it's going to feel like the Midwest, all thanks to the moisture that is going to stream northward. So let's actually look at the P-Watt values for you all here. So P-Watt values, that's how much total precipitable water there is in the atmosphere. And look at all this moisture. I mean, that is 2 inches. 2 inches of P-Watts moving over the Central Valley for tomorrow night. Lots and lots of moisture working its way up into the Sacramento Valley. Man, this is very, very tropical-like. Very tropical-like. And look at Southern California. P-Watt values up to 2¼ inches. That is really, really absurd. You don't see that very often. And so that is going to lead to very muggy conditions. Dew points here in the 70s. In the 70s in Southern California. If you don't believe me, look at Los Angeles. 71-degree dew points. I mean, this is like Florida weather, like literally pure tropical in nature over this area. And then if you thought that was muggy, look at the inland valleys here of Palm Springs. Dew points between 70 to 75 degrees. That is very, very tropical. Like, that is very unusual. And so what that's going to lead to is the potential for some very, very heavy rainfall potentially and high-based thunderstorms as this moisture works its way across Southern California. Now, models are not exact on how much rainfall you're going to see because it's different between each model run and each model that you use. But you can see the majority anywhere between 1/4 to 1/2 inch, but it is going to be pretty stinking muggy. It's going to be disgusting, something that you're not used to at all. And so you're going to feel that for your day on Thursday and into Friday. Very, very tropical, like absolutely disgusting. You don't see this very often. It's nothing serious. So you're saying the California storm is nothing serious, and in reality, it is actually pretty serious because, I mean, the moisture is going to be extremely high associated with this. And boy, I wish I can get the P-Watt anomalies. Yeah, right here. Yeah, look at the P-Watts in our area right here. For Northern California, 6 times the standard deviation, 6 times higher than average. And when you look at your P-Watt percent of normal here, this is pretty dang high. That's 260 to even 300. That is very, very moist and a fairly unstable air mass. And that is why I think we are going to have some high-based thunderstorms that are going to cause a lot of problems, I believe. Strong winds, you name it, maybe even some brief supercell structures as well associated with this. Yeah, there's a potential for that as well. So keep that in mind. Lots and lots of moisture. That will hopefully bring us some needed rain, but hopefully no fire starts because we do not want any fire starts. Well, most of the rain would likely fall down here in the southern portion, though, of California. Yeah, someone said I went from being overhyping to underhyping or downplaying the hurricane season. Well, yeah, of course. And honestly, I did overhype a little bit for the hurricane season, but I'll tell you, there's a lot of people out there that are way worse than me when it comes to overhyping the hurricane season. So yeah, don't even start with that. I do agree. I did overhype a little bit, but again, it could be a lot worse. It can be a lot worse. And yeah, a lot of high P watt values. Jeez Louise. Yeah, a lot of moisture surging in. Lots of moisture. Oh, yeah. There is definitely going to be thunderstorms. Definitely high-based convection over our area. Yeah. That would likely be for Friday morning. So yeah, I'm excited for this. I am very excited. Dew points going to be in the upper 60s to lower 70s. I am excited for that. I get to experience my first tropical-like system. Man, this is very muggy. This is disgusting. Okay, Drown Belcher. Yes. Stop downplaying. Oh, it only takes one storm. Until that storm happens, though, okay? We'll cross that bridge once we get there. But I mean, honestly, I don't want to purposefully downplay, but honestly, it's better than, in my personal opinion, it's better than overhyping. It really is. Because what if I predicted 30 named storms? Right. And we didn't even get there. Then people would call me, you're a liar, David. You're overhyping. I get it. I know I'm downplaying the hurricane season, but there is great reasoning for that. First of all, Gabrielle is turning out to sea. So we get another saving grace-like system. Secondly, the background state is just not as conducive as what we first thought. You've never seen a hurricane? Well, not in person. No, not in person. So, yeah. Do you prefer too much water or fire? I prefer a lot of rainfall. Which, speaking of that, next week on Tuesday, guess what? Guess what? Guess what, everybody? Another cutoff upper level low. Look at this little guy. Another upper level low impacting California in about 6 to 7 days. And you know what that means? It means more of this. More thunderstorm potential for California. Certainly a potential for thunderstorms. Yeah, you can see it right here for next week. Definitely thunderstorm potential yet again. Unusually active weather pattern for California in September. Oh, yeah, I know. It's very unusual. And this one, again, going to bring us a lot of high moisture content. Yet again, it's going to feel very much tropical-like. Very much tropical-like out there. And then behind that, actually, let's go back here. So, yeah, so here's the cutoff low that moves through California. And then we get another system that moves on through. Actually, let's go to the northeastern Pacific. And then guess what? Another big system rolls on through. Look at that. Nice active weather pattern for California. Not going to complain about that. Not going to complain. I'm actually pretty much excited for it because it's better if we get rain than we don't get rain. While it's going to be pretty ridgy across much of the northern tier United States, as well as, look at that, in Canada, Hudson Bay, lots of ridging in place. That is actually very strong ridge. Very strong ridge. Ooh, our GFS model is starting to render. Curious of what that's going to show. But yeah, look at this ridge up there. Very, very strong. And that means also really warm temperatures. I mean, in Canada, going to have temperatures perhaps in the 80s for this time of the year. So before any more questions, do you all agree with my latest predictions on this hurricane season? If you guys don't, then I don't know what to say. Do you all agree with my intensity forecast on Gabrielle? I need to know your guys' opinions on that. By the way, if you have not liked the stream yet, please hit that like button. No, I don't. You don't agree. That's perfectly fine. You don't agree with it. But once it's over with, the system, you know, someone's going to have to agree with me. I think Gabrielle will become stronger than 60 miles per hour. We will see, shall we? We will wait and see. All right. Any more questions, anybody? Again, like I said, on the Euro, on its 12Z output, we'll see what the 0Z shows tonight. But we do not have the 0Z out on the GFS on Tropical Tidbits yet. But I'm telling you, I am very, it's... Oh, you live in California. That's right. Samir. I am excited for this moisture here in Cali, though. What part of California do you live in? Samir? I think you live in Southern California, if I remember correctly. Do you feel like a hurricane will pop in the Gulf at any time? No, there's not much signal for that. I don't think we'll see a surprise, at least for right now. If we look at the Gulf right now, I mean, look how much shear there is. Look how much vertical wind shear there is. Like, there is a lot of vertical wind shear. Oh, you're in the Central Valley. What part of the Central Valley? Sorry to kind of get deeper into that. Boy, if you're close to me, we can meet each other one day. And that's right, you're in the Weather Kingdom Discord server. So we're in the same time zone. I feel actually extra special now. "2024, you say there will be no hurricane, and you said it was going." No, I didn't, Duran Belcher. I never said that. I never said that. So please don't be adding words to my mouth there, okay? I never said that there won't be a hurricane in 2024. But yeah, the Gulf is not favorable. So I'm not concerned about anything anytime soon in that area. But you know what? This is an experiment. Let's see. It's not about who is accurate, but let's just see. I am predicting that Gabrielle is not going to become much stronger than a 50-mile-an-hour system. But I mean, this looks very, very anemic looking. It really does. What's up, DST 147? How are you doing? Do you think any for Bleeze? Right now for Bleeze, certainly could get a system this, especially once the Central American Gyre builds, if it does at all, which I think it will by the early to the middle part of October. But yeah, you guys have to understand that, I'm not trying to under or turn my back on the hurricane season, be like, oh, nothing's big is going to happen. But right now, the pattern does not look to change. The MJO is not coherent. It is disorganized. And yes, we will continue to see these tropical waves coming off of Africa and yellow highlighted areas on the NHC. But any significant development, major hurricanes and what all, does not look likely. Does not look likely. Yes, will we see more named storms? I would say we'll see at least another 2 or 3 named storms before the season is done. But will we get any more major hurricanes? There's a lot of uncertainty on that. I would say at least one more major hurricane potentially, but the chances of that occurring, again, if we do not get anything by the very end of September behind Gabrielle or anything through the middle of October, then everybody, you could probably ask yourself that, man, is this season ever going to wake up? I mean, theoretically, you have another month and a half once we get into middle of October, but the window's getting narrower. It really is. Especially once we go into late September into early October, we are on the decrease now. We are in that past the peak of hurricane season. Is that really a 50-mile-an-hour storm? I know. The one that has Japanese, right? I can't even say your name because it's not English, but yeah. That's what I'm saying is I mean, this is not a 50-mile-an-hour system. It really isn't. And in fact, if we go to Cyclonic WX over here, let me see if I could find any ASCAP pass. Let's see if I could find any detail on the system. Oh, there we go. That's what I wanted. That's what I wanted. Let's see here. No, that's not what I wanted. Okay, how in the heck am I supposed to get the... Let's see. Oh, ASCAT. There we go. ASCAT pass. See if we got any ASCAT passes. So this is the latest ASCAT pass right now. And look at what this shows. Winds going this way. Winds going this way. Okay. This is what your winds are looking like, which means this may not be closed because you have winds doing this. Winds coming around like this. So this may not barely be closed. It may be barely closed, but it really doesn't matter at this point. Yeah, so let's get the previous. Yeah, so here's the last one from 2344 Zulu. Okay, of course, the satellite data is not available, but look what the winds are like on this. Ask yourself right now, is that 50-mile-an-hour winds? Look at the knot chart. Maximum wind, 39.8 knots. 39.8. That's 45 miles an hour. That is the latest ASCAT pass. Very latest. 2344 Zulu. That is 4:44 p.m. And this is Tropical Storm Gabrielle. Very elongated low. Okay, barely. I mean, I don't even think it's closed. I really don't think so. Winds are doing this. They're coming around like this. Very, very sharp wave pocket right here. Very sharp. And there is no red barbs at all. I don't see any red barbs to the north of this, indicating 40 to 45 knots. And if you need 45 knot winds, that equates to 50 miles an hour or so. We're not seeing that. We are not seeing that on Gabrielle, at least in its latest ASCAT pass. Yeah, so this does not look very strong at all. It really doesn't. Hey, David, is the storm hitting Southern California yet? Well, the moisture is, yes. And actually, if we go to Doppler radar, let's bring up Doppler. So yeah, there is definitely moisture. There is no thunderstorms being detected yet. There's not much convective elements. With this. Actually, there might be lightning out there. I'm sure there is. But yeah, the moisture has not made its way into Los Angeles, but dew points are somewhat high. Wait, there are some high-based thunderstorms over here, though, but there's no lightning strikes associated with those. Yeah, there's no lightning strikes, so that is good. That's a good thing. No lightning associated with that. So it is muggy here. So, Siebener, what part of the Central Valley do you live in? I don't know if I got your question or got your answer yet from above. You're in the Central Valley, but what part of the Central Valley? Dew points here where I'm at are 55 degrees, so it's not too muggy. It's not too bad yet. Here's the latest GFS model run, by the way. We're getting the new model in right now as we speak. And it is about the same. I mean, look at that. That is that's a 25 knot system. 25 knots. And it looks a little stronger right now. But man, living, that is pretty dang weak. That is not strong at all. And that's in 62 hours. So, yeah. Yeah. San Joaquin Valley. So you're pretty close. You're pretty close. And you're in the San Joaquin Valley. So, yeah. Me and you are going to have the same weather, especially tomorrow night into Friday. So, yeah, looking at the latest GFS right now. So it does try to get itself together. So yeah, we'll have to just see how this all evolves. We'll see what it does. What it does. So, anything else? Anything else? I'm very curious to see what the with what the GFS will show, though, once it renders a little further in. But man, does not look very defined. It really does not. Wind gusts, by the way, are under 30 knots with this system too. So it's not very strong. Not very strong at all. Yeah, it's weaker on this run by a knot with wind gusts. So it will be a learning curve for other forecasters that maybe trust me a little bit more Where is the MJO currently? The MJO is not coherent. There is no MJO activity. If we look at the MJO right now, this is what we have. This is pretty much what we have right now on the latest Euro model. So the MJO is over here. Oops. So the latest MJO is over here. It's going to go over here and out into a more unfavorable phase. And then maybe by October, we will see where it goes here. The only time we could get a really busy period is if the MJO could move back over here, start, and then go around like that. Then maybe we would get more activity in the deep tropical Atlantic as well as the Caribbean. But the problem here is this MJO has not been coherent. It has not. And what I mean by that is this circle right here is your null phase. That's basically the unit of circle. That tells us that, okay, if it's inside this circle, there is technically no MJO activity. And other people will disagree about, no, David, there is MJO activity because look at, it's in phase 8 right now. But it's a very weak amplitude of the MJO. Not really enough to kickstart Genesis. Okay? You have to understand that. Okay? If you want a active Atlantic hurricane season in the sea surface temperature configuration that we're seeing, you need your MJO more like this. So you need your MJO that kind of does this, kind of gets a little closer, might go out a little bit, and it kind of rotates. It does this whole circumnavigation, might do this a little bit, then go out and then finish its cycle up, and then maybe go in a little bit for a while, and then kind of come out and then finish its cycle and whatever. You need it. You need a more coherent, more higher amplitude MJO. People say climatology is enough. In most cases, yes, but it means a difference. Like the MJO, convective coupled Kelvin wave, is like a super boost for the hurricane season. So with climatology alone, if it was just climatology without the stability issues, we would probably see about 3 or 4 named storms in September. Okay, and so far we have only had 1. That can change though, right? But when we get the MJO, convective coupled Kelvin waves on top of other factors of climatology, you end up seeing 8 or 9 named storms. So it charges the atmosphere up a little bit. You get more convection, more instability, okay? And right now, we are not seeing that. The MJO is over here, and yes, climatology is playing a role in this as well. That's why we are seeing the tropical waves that we're seeing. But you need a little bit more better forcing somewhere in the tropics to get something. And right now, we are just not having it this season. You can see the MJO going to be going into the null phase directly almost in the middle again. So that goes to show you that, oh, okay, David, you are right then. The MJO is not very active. Okay. And honestly, again, we do not want to hope for significant development. I mean, it's kind of like a ticket to ride. You know, you're lucky. We are very lucky and fortunate this season isn't as bad as it could be. All right. Yeah, the latest GFS model, a little bit more aggressive, showing a tropical storm here, it looks like. Until we get more consistency on our models, my intensity forecast is not going to change. But I think a 55 to even 60 mile an hour tropical storm, 60 at the highest, is what I'm going with right now. Show MJO last year. I can't bring up historical MJO activity, DST 147. I don't have access to that. Actually, let me see if I could. Oh, I can. Sweet. Sweet, sweet, sweet. So I'm going to use this probably. Year. That's year month. Okay. So we will put 06 1. Oh, wait. 06 01 2024 06. Oh, no, wait. 0. Or no, wait. 11 30 2024. What the heck? What? Why can't I get it? Literally, why can't I get this? Oh, you know why? Because the year. Okay. I did this backwards. Hold on. 2024 month 06 and the year or the day is 01 and 2024 11 30. There we go. That's what I wanted. That's what I wanted. Okay. Here we go. This is how your MJO was last year from June all the way through November. So we were certainly seeing more MJO activity last year. And if we look at this year, same time frame, but we can't go, okay, 2000, okay, so 09, and we'll just say the 15th of September because it could be delayed by why isn't it? Oh, there we go. So this is this. So the MJO right here I'm trying to boy, this is the way this is all plotted down. Oh my goodness. Yeah. But given the fact is okay, here is September. I think September is somewhere over here. Yeah. So it doesn't seem like we've had as much MJO activity as we would otherwise. I just don't think so. If we look at the previous last year, especially in November, we had a lot of MJO activity in phases 2 and 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. So it seemed more active over here for September, October, and November, which is more favorable for the Atlantic being more active. Let's look at 2020, though. Let's see what 2020 looked like. What the MJO did look like back then. And we'll go to 2020, 11, 30. Let's look at that. Again, we got to compare these. So the MJO in 2020 between June and November, it also seemed a lot more active over here in phases 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, favoring the Atlantic with a lot of hyperactive activity. It's why we were able to get what we were able to get, okay, out of that. Versus look at this year. or last year, 2020, 2024, and this year. See, it's been more active over here, favoring the Western Pacific and even parts of the Eastern Pacific, but not much going on in the Atlantic. That is why also we're not seeing much tropical activity. And the atmosphere is out of whack. It really is. We don't know why, but it's out of whack. 2022, you want me to view? Okay, let's see what it was like in 2022. Yeah, so 2022 was also a pretty, I believe that season had like 20 named storms. Let's see. Something like 19 or 20 named storms. Oh, 14 named storms. Got my numbers wrong there. Got my numbers wrong. So that had 14 named storms. So it was really October and November that the MJO was really active over there in the Atlantic. See, that's when we had a burst of activity. We also had a lot of activity in September. So we can look back at that for September. What was the MJO doing then? That is interesting. The MJO was not active in September. Even so, September did produce a lot of hurricanes. 1, 2, 3, 4 hurricanes in the month of September. So it does come down to stability issues. It has to be stability issues. That's the thing. The MJO doesn't help it being inactive, but it has to do a lot with stability. But it was really active, especially in June and then in October and November. And I'm just curious right now, what does the MJO look like in the last X amount of days? So we're going to bring that up really quickly. So we're going to bring in 0, 9, 1 through 0, 9, 16. Right. Get phase plot. Okay. Nope. 15. There we go. Yeah. So this is where our MJO has been recently. So this is... Yeah, this is where we're at here. Apparently, the MJO, it thinks it's in phase 2 right now. It started in the null phase, went... Oh, wait, no. Yeah, it started here, went out here, and then looped around. So it's over here now on this diagram. But that's why I'm going to use a different one. Yeah, O and I. Let's look at the O and I. What the heck? Probably delayed even more. Let's see. Okay, so it is not updating. That's crazy. It's not updating. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So it's doing this. It went over here and it's looping around. I don't know how accurate the VPM diagram is, though. This is a little bit different than using... Because there's different ways you can use it. You can use OLR, outgoing long wave radiation. That's how you can find it. So this is interesting that it is showing it, that it is in phases 2 and 3, or moving out of the unit of circle if it actually does. But it was pretty active in phase 1 recently. I'm actually going to save that website. Thank you for that. And that's going to be under Hurricane Monitor. So, yeah, with that being said, it's what our latest GFS is showing. Yeah, it does try to consolidate. It does try itself. But that is so dang small. And it waits for day 5. It really does. But trends have really went down on this system. Yeah. So Bermuda's right there. That is a 59 knot storm. So it is just under hurricane intensity. Until I see more coherency on our models, I don't think this is going to become a hurricane. I really don't think so. I really don't think so. Hoping for a La Nina winter this year. Why? Because that means dry weather for southern half of California. By the way, my winter forecast will be out tomorrow. Can't wait to release that for you all. Going to be exciting. All right. Well, anyways, I'm going to head off, you guys. Thank you all for tuning in. I think that's all for this discussion on the tropics. Have a great rest of your guys' night. Please don't forget to subscribe. If you're new, you haven't been here before. And yeah, we will keep you updated on the tropics if necessary, but gonna probably start focusing on a little bit more on the United States weather side of things. Doing my climate, I'm going to be doing my seasonal weather outlook. We'll probably have that out tomorrow. So, yep. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace out.